The Carolina Hurricanes complete their 4-game road trip, collecting 5 points. Now, the last 2 games told 2 different tales of how it ended. We'll talk about all that here on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hawkers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. On today's show, we're going to kind of recap the last 2 games that happened on Friday and on Sunday. The Hurricanes beat the Jets, unfortunately lost to the Sabres, and then we'll hear from Rod Brind'Amour in the post game and kind of react to his thoughts on the team's loss. But before we do all that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, it was a very interesting end to the road trip for the Carolina Hurricanes. They go 2-1-1. They do secure 5 points, and they are still, as of right now, top of the Metropolitan Division. Actually, surprisingly, they are over the second place New York Islanders, and then the New Jersey Devils are in the third spot. So, overall, even with how kind of the last game went, which we'll talk about in segment 2, the Hurricanes had a pretty successful road trip, and of course, it does help too when you bounce back after an OT loss, or mainly in the shootout, is that they go and beat the Winnipeg Jets in basically Nikolai Ehlers' first game back, and of course, amazing tributes, as they should be for Ehlers. Unfortunately, he did not get a point in the game, but he did get a point in the game with the assist on the Andrei Svechnikov power play goal. Now, the game was a good start. Jordan Staal scores 16 seconds in. Unfortunately, Winnipeg does score 2, but then the captain scores 1 in the second period. Up to 7 points, and he's been on fire as of late. Unfortunately, he did miss the Sunday game due to illness, but before then, the last 4 games and during that 5-game point streak, Jordan Staal did score 4 goals. 2 of them were against the Jets. But hey, talk about having a hot run for the captain. Then obviously shorthanded goal by Seth Jarvis, power play goal by Andrei Svechnikov. So basically, the Hurricanes scored even strength, shorthanded, and on the power play, and that's what they really needed. Game was a lot closer than you really wanted it to be, but for the fact that they came out, played a great game, and that's all you really ask for, and especially for the fact, too, you got, the captain scoring 2 goals, his first 1,000% shooting game in that one, and he only played 15 minutes and 30 seconds, but pretty good overall for him to do that. K'Andre Miller, multi-point game as well. Sebastian Aho, multi-point game, and Brandon Bussi, 25 of 28. It was an 893 save percentage, but it's one of those things where, hey, you are, giving up 3 goals on a very minimal amount of shots. But overall, I think that was a good bounce back game from the shootout loss to Minnesota. Yeah, you were down 2-1 after the first. And you guys have been hearing me saying this recently. There's been a lot of gifting teams a lot of these goals. And that's kind of what you saw in that first period against the Jets, where it's turnovers. You're giving opportunities to Josh Morrissey, gave Velarde scores on that one as well. And it's at that point, the Hurricanes are still taking wins regardless of, unfortunate plays that kind of go against their way or go against them, but they finally get the job done. They did. And, you're looking at a Hurricanes team that up until that point, like I said, was on a 5-game point streak, won 4 games in a row, clawed back to catch the Devils, who seemed like they wouldn't lose a game. And now at that point, and they still are right now, going into Thanksgiving week, they are, on a, they're first in the Metro, and you'll gladly take that. It's, like I said, it's good that they're winning, but like I said, it's still that concern of, you're not you're giving teams opportunities to stay in games or take leads and score goals that you really don't need to give them, and that's kind of what's bitten the team recently. And we'll talk more about what that game was on Sunday against Buffalo, but overall, it's good the fact that the Hurricanes are still winning games despite the fact that you're having constant guys out of the lineup, you're having to shuffle lines up if you need to, and it's a different look to what the team was going to be at the start of the season. But for me, I think this team is different to where you're finding them creating ways to get the wins. They're getting the job done, even if it's not 100%. And I know special teams is a little bit different this year. The fact that Jacob Slavin is still out and we still have no update when he's going to be back. So, yeah, maybe the PK is a little bit, not as good as it usually is, but they're still treading water really well. Unfortunately, the power play, while it did score against the Jets, still kind of the Achilles heel of this team right now, which is still crazy to think about, for the fact that there's all this talent on the team and you're getting the opportunities to, when you do get one here and there, it's good, but overall you still shouldn't have the worst power play in the league. But in a game like this, you go home, you go up to Winnipeg, you got, Nikolai Ehlers getting assists in his first game back. You get Seth Jarvis scoring a goal in his hometown, which is really cool. Of course, all of his buddies were there, and it was awesome to see them talk to Mike and Tripp and just, get that sense of, being able to see Seth score against his against, the team he grew up with in his hometown in front of his buddies. And the way he scored, too, was great. The fact that, picked up a rebound off of Sebastian Aho's shot that went off of Eric Comrie. He scores. Hey, you'll love to take that. And now the Hurricanes, up until that point where he scores a goal, are up to now 80 wins in the regular season when Seth Jarvis scores. So big shout out to Keen Stat Brand for that. And overall, great win. Like I said, a little bit closer than you want it to be, and the fact that they dug deep after going down 2-1 after the first. That's a complete team win. And after those two goals, too, you kind of saw Brandon Busty kind of settle into his game a little bit and took care of business. So it's for me, it's you're seeing the fact that the team's kind of picking up where they need to, if certain goalies are on it on certain nights, but also to even then, like, the team is finding ways to be creative to win games. And that's all you can really ask for out of them right now. So hopefully it's kind of things kind of figure itself out. Hopefully the whole team gets healthy, because the fact of like I said, the matter is, even close games like this, and of course, like I said, we'll talk about the Buffalo game in segment 2, the Hurricanes are still getting the job done now with the full roster, now with everything clicking on all cylinders, but you're still first in the East. You're second in the NHL behind the Colorado Avalanche, who for whatever reason just keep winning games. They're on an unreal run too. But the fact that the Hurricanes are in the spot that they're in with a okay penalty kill, not a top 5, but still an okay penalty kill, and the worst power play in the league, they're still getting the wins. They're still getting the job done. I don't think that's really talked about enough, where everyone talks about all these other teams are battling through adversities of injuries and still winning games. We look at Carolina, and it's like everyone's kind of like, oh, it's Carolina. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to be good. It doesn't really matter. But it's like, you got to talk about the fact that this team is still getting the job done, and they're doing it without Jacob Slavin. They're doing it with, a lot of guys being hurt in certain points. And like, we're in American Thanksgiving, and the Hurricanes are still getting the job done without a full roster and special teams being okay. Like, it's really been 5-on-5 that's really picking up for the Hurricanes as of late. So overall, like I said, it's a great win against Winnipeg. You had to come back from down 2-1. You found a way to, tie it, get the lead, and maintain the lead, scoring on shorthanded, power plays, 5-on-5. You got the job done. You got the win in Ehlers' first game back in Winnipeg. You move on from there with a 4-game winning streak, and at that point, a 5-game point streak as well, and solidifying first place in the Metro. However, you move on to Buffalo, where, and we'll definitely talk about it and hear about it from Rod Brind'Amour, Shane Gostisbehere, and all that, to where it was probably one of the ugliest games that the Hurricanes have played, and it hopefully kind of is a wake-up call for the rest of the week, because you really don't want to go into Thanksgiving break and into December starting out with what that was, especially when you're in a home game, 7-game homestand coming up. So what can we take away from the Buffalo game? Well, stick around and we'll talk about it here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for the opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Their zone deals are a game changer. You pick the section, Game Time picks your seats, and you save big. You can even find NHL tickets for under $25. So take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we talked about the good that was the Hurricanes win against the Winnipeg Jets, but now let's talk about the Sunday scaries that were for the Hurricanes against the Buffalo Sabres on Sunday in Buffalo, where they lost 4-1, and it was 3-1 if you take out the Tage Thompson goal. But while the Hurricanes did outshoot the Sabres 30-21, more importantly 13-4 in the third period, it was. I'll give them this. Face-off percentages go without Jordan Staal being in the lineup due to an illness. They had to play 11-7. They won 30 of the 53 for 56.6%. PK, 3 for 4. Can't be mad about that. Power play, 1 for 4. Shane Gostisbehere's second goal of the season. You love to see it. Other than that, I don't think there's really going to take a lot for this game. And Beck, Melasteinen, gotta give the guy credit. That was an unreal goal that he, unfortunately, you look at that highlight and it's usually you see Sebastian Aho on those ends of undressing guys, dog walking them, and unfortunately he did, and it stinks. It's one of those things, man. You gotta give guy a lot of credit for that. Dancing around Aho, and then Freddie Anderson. Gotta make the save, but like I said, you gotta give credit to him. That was an unreal shot. Shane Gostisbehere power play goal. I think it's really the only main highlight you can take out of this game. That's really about it. I mean, no guy was a plus in this game. You had Hall, Robinson, Martin, Carrier, all at an even. Everyone else was a minus. -2s to Aho, Jarvis, Ehlers, Svechnikov, and Jackson Blake. Defensively, no one was a plus. Sean Walker -2, Shane Gostisbehere -3, and you feel bad for Ghost because he had 3 shots, 2 hits, the power play goal, and basically in terms of shots, he led all of the defensemen. Sean Walker had 2 other guys had 1, and you look at the shots on the forwards: 3 for Blake, 5 for Svechnikov, 3 for Jarvis, 2 for Aho, 4 for Stamkos. You get the point. But the thing is, Freddie Anderson, 3 goals on 20 shots and .850 save percentage. This was just not a good game, and you heard it from the post-game, quotes after the loss, and it's one of those things where it's a tough game to look at, where you are wrapping up your road trip, you're playing against a Buffalo team who punked the Blackhawks 9-3, but they're bottom of the division, the Atlantic. They're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference now with the win over the Hurricanes. That's now the Maple Leafs. But here's the thing: it's just, and this is what Shane Gostisbehere had to say after the game, and it's tough when you come out a little flat and give them some goals, which they did. It was a pretty tough second period. We came out for the third to give it a push. It was kind of a wasted effort in the sense that we needed to do that from the start, not just in the third. We've got to stop putting ourselves in a hole and giving them some easy ones, which they've done a lot recently. This is me saying that part. Not the best ending to the road trip. We obviously want to have our best every night, and obviously we didn't have it. It kind of felt like we were trying to get home. Roddy's been saying that it was kind of a wasted effort in our sense. We might as well show up if we're going to be there. It's a hard league, and they're playing good hockey over there. Buffalo's playing okay hockey. I wouldn't say it's great hockey. You know, it was good hockey. I would say it wasn't even that good, and it's just. And we'll hear from Rod Brind'Amour in segment 3 where he really tells it like it is. And Shane Gossesbear is right. It was a wasted effort in the third period to where, yeah, you had 13 shots, but you gifted them goals once again, like they've done all the back end of this road trip and over the last few games. And they really need to stop putting themselves into a hole. Like that's the bad thing. And you can't just wait until the end of the game to kind of turn it on. Like that's just not a good look if you're the Hurricanes. And like I said, for Freddie Anderson, you know, you look up the last few games. Minnesota, you win 3 goals allowed on 24 shots, 875 save percentage. 3 goals allowed on 27 shots against Washington. You lose that game, 889 save percentage. 4 goals allowed against Edmonton. You know, noted, you know, unfortunately, got taken out of that game, but 826 save percentage. 3 goals allowed on 19 shots against Minnesota. 842 save percentage, losing a shutout or in a shootout. Buffalo, 850 save percentage, 3 shots on 20 goals. Freddie Anderson has not had 900 in the last 5 starts that he's had this year. Like overall, I know it's, you know, if you're the Hurricanes not giving up a lot, if you're not giving up a lot of shots and you let 2 or 3, and yeah, your save percentage goes down. But even if you take out the Colorado game where he had a 917 and a 909 against Boston, ever since the Vegas game back on October 20th, 880, 853, 875, 889, 826, 842, 850. Ever since the Vegas start that he's had only 2 900 save percentage games. That's it. Before that, 1, and that was against Anaheim right at 958. Other than that, it's been the 880s. Like I said, give some benefit of the doubt for the fact, like I said, the Hurricanes don't give up a lot of shots. But you really have to ask more out of Freddie Anderson if he's going to be playing, because you're looking at a guy right now on the season, and you hear me speak highly of the goaltending. He is 5-5-2 in 12 starts, a 307 goals against average, and an 881 save percentage. Freddie Anderson has never finished a season above 500, and right now he is at 307. Yes, there's still a lot of runway left into the season to where he could turn that around, but it's not great. Even his save percentage of 881 is also his worst ever in his career. Like last season was an 899. He had an 895 back in 2020, 2021 with the Maple Leafs at an 895, and that was it. But right now, it's just an overall not the greatest start to the season for Freddie Anderson. I'm trying, and like I said, give him the benefit of the doubt on the save percentage, but you got to get some saves, and that's what you really need right now. But like, and the thing, like I said, like what Ghost said, you are giving too many chances to these teams. And Rod Brind'Amour has been saying it for the road trip, and even the last couple of weeks, they are gifting teams goals, and you're playing harder than you need to. You don't. The Hurricanes could have more wins this season if they weren't just throwing, you know, drop passes or passes that weren't just going to work, and then pinching when you don't need to, and it's just defensive breakdowns, leaving your goalie out to dry. Like Brandon Busby's giving up goals that I wouldn't even blame him for because he got left to dry, and that's kind of what you saw in this game against Buffalo. And Shane Gossesbear said it; they were ready to go home. Like it was a 4-game road trip. You win in Winnipeg Friday, you travel, you play Buffalo on Sunday, then you're off for 2 days. You know, Monday, Tuesday, you play New York on Wednesday, you have Thanksgiving off, and you're back at it Friday. Like you're ready to start a 7-game homestand. Like you got to hope that isn't what it's going to be like going to American Thanksgiving, to where, you know, and I understand it. Like guys are tired. It's a long road trip. Everyone's human, but you can't just throw away games against teams like Buffalo. Yeah, they played good. They played good hockey over there. Yeah, but you know, there's one game where they're scoring 9 against the Blackhawks, and there's another game that they're not scoring at all. But for the Hurricanes, like you have the talent to get it done. It's just that's an unfortunate game where you shouldn't have lost, or at least put in an effort where you're not waiting to put up 13 shots in the third period to get back into a game that you really should never have been down in the first place. But it is what it is at that point. You lose 4-1. It should never have gotten to 3-1 to where you had to pull the goalie to score 2 goals, but this is where we're at. Speaking of which, we heard from what Shane Gostisbehere said. What did Rod Brind'Amour say about this game? Stick around and we'll listen and react to it here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or one right at the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to 2 fourth-quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. All right, so we talked about the game against the Jets. We kind of recapped the game against the Sabres, which was just a not great game overall for the Carolina Hurricanes. So what did the head coach say after their 4-1 loss against to Buffalo? Well, let's listen to that and react to it right now.
How would you analyze the game today?
Try to keep it PG here. Not very good. I mean, it was one of those nights or afternoons I could feel right from the start. We're just flat, and you got guys that no excuse as part of that schedule, long road trip. We're fighting the flu bug a little here, and the energy was just so dead, and we played like it.
In terms of the power play, obviously being a bright spot, able to convert again, have you noticed any sort of difference specifically?
No, they were okay. I mean, obviously we got one. I'm not sure what we ended up, how many power plays we had. Didn't feel like we had, but it's that was not the area of concern. Obviously, it was we didn't do anything for 2 periods. We just kind of flowed through the game, and in the third they sat back, so you can't really gauge it. We had some opportunities, but game was lost because we kind of gave up some weird opportunities that we don't normally give up, and they capitalized.
I know it's not a great one to end on, but 5 of 8 possible points on this road trip. How would you summarize it?
Well, I appreciate you trying to make a bright spot. We don't ever really look at it that way. Today was what was ahead of us, and we didn't answer the bell, so that's frustrating. But yeah, I mean, we did play some really good hockey on this trip for sure, and got to regroup.
Big thank you to Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes as always, and you heard from him yourself. It's one of those things where it's a bright spot that you got 5 points out of the road trip, which is good to have. But Rod said that the team is battling a flu a little bit. I know everyone was up in arms about Alexander Nikishin not playing on Friday against the Jets, but that's kind of what it seems like, that he was sick. Jordan Stahl was out because he was sick, so it's just that part of the year where we're going to start losing guys to sickness, unfortunately. But he even said it right from the jump. This was just a flat game. They floated for 2 periods, and you saw that. Yeah, outside of the Shane Gostisbehere goal, it was a game where you kind of tell they weren't really into it. And if Buffalo, he said Buffalo sat back in the third, so you can't really gauge of them actually having a better third period. Yeah, they outshot them, but how was the quality of the shots? And it was just. This is probably the most frustrating I've heard Rod Brind'Amour all season, on the fact that it was the most lackadaisical game of, you're battling the flu. That's understandable. Also, at the same time, he said the team didn't answer the bell. You can look back on the road trip and be like, hey, it was successful. You got 5 points. That's great. But at the same time, you ended on a very sour note of just not playing your greatest hockey and given some opportunities that you really shouldn't have. And that's just how this game ended. That's how this game was. And, you just got to, like Rod said, regroup and get ready, because you got a 7-game homestand coming up. And this league isn't easy. You guys hear me say it all the time. Anyone can beat anyone. But at the same time, it's just got to get the job done. Unfortunately, the Hurricanes did against Buffalo. You dropped one where you could have distanced yourself on the Metropolitan Division with, the Islanders, surprisingly being in second place, where a lot of people thought they weren't going to be there this year. You got New Jersey, who's still within striking distance in third place, and the fact that they have a game in hand on the Hurricanes now. It's just, if they win, their next game, they're 1 point back. It's, you can't really rest on, we're in first place. Okay, but you still need to keep putting points up, and that's just not what you did. And like I said, it's understandable. Guys are sick. Okay, everyone gets sick. It's that time of year where November, December, January, you see a lot of the illness start hitting these teams, and guys have families, guys are on the road, stuff happens like that. It's a long road trip. So, give them the benefit of the doubt on that. At the same time, everyone's got to fight through it, and you got to win games, and they did. And that's just kind of where you look at it as you stand right now, to where when your coach says you floated for 2 periods, that's not really a great sign. You played some flat hockey, you floated, didn't really do a whole lot. And yeah, you could say you had 13 shots in a period, but if it comes down to, they sat back, then are you really gauging that you had a great period, or you just played against the team that was like, we're up 2 goals. They've been kind of putting it on us, but not really. We've scored on them. Yeah, teams will probably sit back like that, and that's just one of those things where you can look at 13 shots and be cool. You got the shots, but unfortunately the effort wasn't there, and you kind of just wasted a comeback that really could have been started a lot sooner. But it's one game. It happens. It's an 82-game season. It's so many games, but overall, I know this is a bit more of a downer episode of just how things went, but overall, I mean, you can't really be too upset. The Hurricanes, like I said, you're first in the Metropolitan Division. You're first in the East. You're second in the NHL, and you're doing this without Jacob Slavin, and you've had some other guys hurt. You're doing a good job. Like, you're still getting the job done. Your PK's being okay. Your PK's all right. Power play could use really a big boost there. Goaltending, Brandon Bless has been pretty good so far. Pierre Kachekov's coming out of the gates, 4-0-0, playing some fantastic hockey. You kind of wish Freddie would get a little bit more saves than you really needed to, but looking on the bright side, looking on the silver linings and the positives, the Hurricanes are in a good spot. You're going to American Thanksgiving, where you're at in the standings is just, hopefully you get Jacob Slavin back soon. Hopefully you kind of lock in and get, some things straightened out, and you kind of get back rolling in the right direction, and you go from there. So that's all you can really ask out of it. So I think the Hurricanes are going to figure out. I think they're going to be fine. It's just a sour note to end a road trip on, where you were 2-0-1. You lost in a shootout to Minnesota, but you were playing some good hockey. You beat Boston. You beat Winnipeg. But it's just, did you answer the bell in the last game? Did you do what you needed to do? And unfortunately, it wasn't the case, but it is what it is. You move on. You get ready for New York in a couple days. You send everyone into Thanksgiving on Thursday on a high note with the win, and you move on from there, and we'll see what happens. But like I said, it's a downer. It stinks you lost like that, but it's all about bouncing back to the next game and moving on. I think the Hurricanes will definitely do that. So hopefully, we have some more positives to talk about over the next few days as we roll into the holidays. But guys, this will be the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a One True Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky, the Zachary Martin. If you click the link tree in my bios, you can find all of my written content at thehockeywriters.com. If you want to check out my other podcasts, it's the Searchcast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, we're on Spotify, Google, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review, because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notifications, don't miss the show. Hit the thumbs up so let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Kings to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Monday, and until next time, as always, let's go Kings.